In this desert that we are currently standing in, there are great pockets of water. Water is so vital to many sections and areas in this vast desert of the interior Northwest. We are standing in the Coulee Lakes area, and we have lakes down to the south of us and to the north of us. And these are lakes that are ice cold, and they preserve many lives, many wild animal lives, birds and insects, all through the hot summer. Water in the desert is something that most people never think about, but water is a component that is irreplaceable. It's a must for survival for many animals. However, we will also be looking at animals in this series that won't be anywhere near water. But today we're standing near a stream, and we're in this beautiful desert here and in the hot weather. And you would never think about water down here. But these coulees are loaded with deep lakes and wonderful water sources. And many people come here to recreate, as do many wild animals, because it's cool and moist and they can live here. So water in the desert is so important to migrant birds, it's important to amphibians, it's important to all kinds of wildlife. And the water that is here is water that is flowing through. And so it continues to populate lakes and streams and springs all the way down these coulee formations. And that's really important. So many places that have no water in these interior deserts have far fewer mammals and birds and insects that live there, but they still live there. So we will be exploring all those. And keep in mind that water is so important to life. And life in the desert is rough without water. Because it was so hot this afternoon, we have seen very few birds. And as it cools off this evening, more and more birds will emerge. These coulee formations each have large bird populations that nest here that are largely neotropic migrants. And we will be talking much more about neotropic migrants later down the road. But the area is absolutely eye-catching, and it is beautiful. And because it is a desert, it is unique. And again, this is a desert created by the rain shadow effect of the Cascade Mountains. Good morning. We are here at a desert lake in north central Washington, and it is known as Soap Lake. It is unique as a desert lake because it is a saline lake. It is an alkaline lake. And as an alkaline lake, it hosts huge numbers of brine shrimp, which is a small crustacean. And brine shrimp are an amazing little animal that are found at all depths in this lake. In fact, there are several species of brine shrimp in this lake that are only found here in Soap Lake. This is a crustacean that has the ability to withstand drought. So brine shrimp adults will mate. The female lays large numbers of eggs. During a drought, they settle into the mud, and that body of water can completely dry up. And it will become encrusted with all kinds of salts, and you would think nothing living could possibly be there. And then when it rains or snow melts and there's a standing pool, those eggs hatch. And brand new populations of brine shrimp emerge. And it is truly phenomenal to watch. So these shrimp provide the basic prey base for large numbers of migrating birds in the spring and in the fall, providing the pools have not dried up. It is an animal that most people don't ever associate with a desert, and they are only found in saline lakes, in alkaline-based water lakes. They are absolutely amazing creatures that can withstand buried in the mud of an alkaline lake for years. So it's an incredible thing. And it's truly one of the secrets of the secret life of the desert. As a result of this population of shrimp, large numbers of birds are attracted to this area. And this morning we've seen a lot of those birds. Some of the species we've seen this morning are Barrow's goldeneye, which is not expected here, common goldeneye. We've also seen many ruddy duck, eared grebes. We've seen horned grebe, Canada geese, bufflehead, all these waterfowl that are here to utilize brine shrimp as a food source. So this lake is also utilized by many human beings who believe that it has healing qualities in the water. Other amazing things in this desert location are the plants. And right now it's the 12th of March, 2020, and yet all kinds of wildflowers were in bloom today. We found giant lomatium in bloom. We found Gray's lomatium in bloom, and a beautiful yellow lomatium that hugs the ground on hot, dry sites. We also found a currant in bloom that was just loaded with native bees that were nectaring on the flowers of the currant. The interesting thing is we are just ahead of a major winter front that's blowing in this evening. And so all these plants and animals and birds are in for a cold period. The interesting thing also about this area is that it is part of a vast lava flow. And we are totally surrounded by huge formations of basalt and parts of the Columbia Basin basalts. This area is also loaded with lots of wildlife. This morning we were walking. We came across chukar and gray partridge as well. So it's a really interesting site. Soap Lake is a major magnet to all kinds of wildlife. And as that, it is very important that it be preserved. A lot of the water comes from seeps deep underground and also from seepage from other systems out of the Columbia River to the north. So it's a very important site and has a high diversity of both plants and wildlife. So that's why we're here. So to recap the names of the species of birds that we saw today here at Soap Lake, we had beautiful Barrow's goldeneye, and this is a waterfowl, a duck, that is typically found on high mountain lakes where it nests, and it is a bird that nests in cavities. To find it on Soap Lake is really unusual, and today we had a beautiful drake with 2 hens with him, and that's really unusual. So they're in migration, headed back to the north, and they nest in northeastern Washington. Another species was the eared grebe, and they were here feeding as well on the shrimp that are available. They build a floating nest, but they do not nest on this lake, so they're passing through. Another migrant that we came across was a spotted towhee. Some of them probably nest in the area, but most of them are moving north, looking for better territories. So to find spotted towhees in the creosote bush or in patches of rose is just a migrant passing through. So they're here, and we found 3 of them today. Deserts are amazing places, and this one has a horrific name. It's called the Scablands, like it doesn't matter. It was scoured by the Missoula floods, and lots of people consider it useless land, and therefore it was given over to be a wildlife area. And because it couldn't be farmed, it was considered absolutely useless. Well, the bottom line is it has the greatest diversity of wildlife and plant life in this whole region. The other thing that is really interesting about this site is that It has tremendous geology as well as topography, and it is incredibly beautiful. A lot of people miss out on these areas because they assume that deserts are dead and useless and have no life. In reality, they are just a living biome that is absolutely beautiful. The other thing to keep in mind is that in deserts there are many species of animals, and animals include everything from insects, fish, birds, mammals, amphibians, and reptiles, all the way to big mammals like deer and elk. All these animals live in this desert, and they're here because they are able to survive and they are able to sustain themselves. And they sustain their populations because of water and because of the plant community that's present. And the plant community that's present is here because of pockets of soil. And all of these components working together create a beautiful area that hosts and sustains huge numbers of living organisms. One thing to always keep in mind is that deserts are not useless. Deserts are not dead. They are a living, breathing area that is just phenomenal. And so I would urge you, if you get an opportunity and you're driving out across the desert, stop, especially in the evening, and listen and watch. You will be amazed. And it's not a useless dead place or space. It's just truly a living area. Today we have had the opportunity of seeing all kinds of wildlife and plants. And some of the species that we've seen today, because of water in this desert, we have seen and heard sandhill cranes, which come here during migration periods in the spring and fall. And they're on their way north to Alaska, some clear into Siberia, some into Canada. These are lesser sandhill cranes. This afternoon, while we were out, we came across a flock of 6,000 to 7,000 snow geese. And they were all sitting on a pond and resting and relaxing. When all of a sudden mass pandemonium struck the flock, they all rose up off the water and panicked. They flew in this one general direction, then swept back to another direction. And the whole time they are calling and extremely loud. And the reason for this pandemonium and all of this fear was that a bald eagle had flown in. This bald eagle flew over the flock, and he was keeping close tabs on the birds below him, looking for injured or sick or slow individuals that didn't leave the water. Fortunately for the flock of snow geese, all of them took off. Bald eagles are a primary predator of snow geese, and American bald eagle has now grown in numbers in eastern Washington to the point where they are expected around most bodies of water or along rivers and are becoming very common. But in this happening, they have changed the dynamic where they used to be very rare and seldom seen, and waterfowl and other birds in the area never had to worry about bald eagles. Now they do. And it is very interesting to see their behavior change drastically over a short period of time. It's been about 5 years since bald eagles started nesting all over eastern Washington. And to see where they show up and how often they show up over large flocks of waterfowl is an amazing event to see. Out here in this great, beautiful desert that we're standing in are vast areas of sagebrush. This is the shrub-steppe community, which hosts amazing numbers of birds, amphibians, reptiles, and insects. And among the birds are sagebrush sparrows. And these gorgeous birds winter down in the southwestern United States and on down into Mexico. And they start returning to the Pacific Northwest in February. And when they return, pairs will head for sagebrush flats. And they are considered a sagebrush obligate species, which means they will only breed where there's sagebrush and not small patches of sagebrush, vast tracts of sagebrush. And so these sagebrush sparrows come in and the males set up a territory and they will sit up on top of sagebrush and begin to sing. And they have a beautiful song and they are very defensive and very, very observant within their territories. Another member of Icaridae is the red-winged blackbird. And red-winged blackbirds spend the entire winter in huge flocks. And oftentimes they gather where there are unnatural situations, such as large cattle feedlots, where their corn is fed to those cattle. And thousands of redwings will come in to feed on the corn that's littered all over the ground where cattle feed. We are out here in the desert in north central Washington state, and we are here to experience winter in the desert. And this is a desert unlike any of the others that we have visited so far. This is a desert that is largely agricultural, has islands of shrub-steppe or sage community plants and bunchgrass, but it's also a desert that has suffered an amazing assault, and that is a huge fire. 285,000 acres burned up this last fall. And subsequently, most of the habitat that these desert animals and birds depended on has burned. And it was such a hot, fast-moving fire that it left nothing but skeletons. So the ground was baked, all the plant community is burned away, and there are many, many animals and birds that are going to be returning here in a week or so, and they are going to find nothing left. We arrived here yesterday, and we were astounded by the tremendous loss of habitat due to this huge fire, but we were also astounded at what was around. And when we arrived here near Atkins Lake in Douglas County, Washington, we had a beautiful male snowy owl. Now, most people do not think of snowy owls coming into a desert low precip zone site, but this is an area that they frequently hang out. And at one point in January of this year, there were up to 7 snowy owls in this area. This beautiful male snowy owl sat and watched us. We had full sunshine on him. It was a beautiful, beautiful afternoon. And interesting thing is, these snowy owls come out of the high Arctic. They frequent this area during the winter months because to them, it's like leaving the Arctic where it's 50 below and coming here where it's 35 to 40 above, and it's balmy and warm to them. They are so well insulated against cold. And prior to the huge fire that burned here last fall, last summer, there were large numbers of voles or meadow mice that roamed all over this area, and that's what they fed on. So this year, they're hanging around areas that have waterfowl. And snowy owls belong to the family of owls called bubo. And the bubo family are large, powerful birds. And snowy owls can take out waterfowl in flight. And so they have no problem feeding in this area because there are pintails and mallards and all kinds of other waterfowl, and they can catch those. So instead of depending on mice as a forage base, they're now catching waterfowl and eating them. This particular snowy owl that we found was an adult male. He was absolutely beautiful. And he was very curious at times, but he kept his distance from us and then abruptly flew to a rocky site, allowed us to pull up on the road and just sat there and watched us. Snowy owls are an amazing bird because they're found circumpolar. They are found all over northern Siberia, all over northern Asia, North Europe, and they do what are called erratic movements. And so in the United States and Canada, every few years, large numbers of snowy owls come south as far as the lower 48 states and the northern tier states. So being as Washington is a northern tier state, just about every winter somewhere, snowy owls show up in this state. They are a primary predator, powerful bird, and absolutely gorgeous. And if you have never seen a snowy owl, they are something to go and look for. They are absolutely spectacular. They stand about 26 inches tall, 25 inches tall, and they are pure white. Some black flecking on the end of the body feathers. Females have lots of black flecking on the terminal end of their body feathers, and they look gray from a distance because of all the black edging on their feathers. The males are almost pure white, and so they're absolutely spectacular. So another species that we came across today, we had rough-legged hawks, which is another large raptor that comes out of the Arctic. They nest on the ground in the Arctic. They build nests, and it is those nests that the snowy owls have their young on, because no owl in North America builds its own nest. And so snowy owls depend on rough-legged hawks, and ironically, they spend the same winter period in the same area in northern 48 states. And oftentimes, rough-legged hawks go as far south as Texas. So today we saw a dark morph rough-legged hawk, which is kind of uncommon. And then we saw the light morph rough-legged hawk, which are absolutely beautiful. A lot of people get them confused with bald eagles because they have a white head, white tail, and a black belly. And lots of people think, oh, I've seen a bald eagle. But they're a third smaller than a bald eagle, but beautiful bird. Today, we are standing in an old abandoned schoolhouse. And to get out of the weather, and the weather has come into the schoolhouse and is blowing right past my face. But it's snowing like mad out here. And so the interesting thing is this schoolhouse has been here as long as I can remember. I think I first saw it when we came through here in the 1980s. So it's been here a long time. It's in a very interesting old building, and unfortunately, vandals are taking their toll on this building. Another interesting thing we discovered was that because of the fire, huge areas that had been used as dumps over the years in the desert were exposed. Tons and tons of just bottles and garbage were littered all over the desert. And that is really concerning because it's trash and it's spread everywhere. And it was hidden by the sagebrush. And people would go out and dump their garbage out in the sagebrush because they considered wasteland of no importance and of no value. Well, now that it's all burned away, what they did has been exposed, and it's really an eyesore. It's really rough on wildlife. A lot of chemicals go into the ground where those dumps occur, so just not a pleasant thing to see. Another thing that we observed today was down around Lake Lenore, which is in the Sun Lakes region, down in the Coulee there. And the lake is absolutely beautiful, but it had all kinds of ice on top of it, and the designs in the ice are just eye-catching. And with the morning sun and these beautiful designs, it was absolutely gorgeous.